Hi and welcome to my cooking vlog. Today I'm going to show you a few very healthy, very quick and easy meals that you can make yourself at home, especially now during this time where a lot of people are in quarantine, where everyone is supposed to stay home. I figured it would be nice to have a few recipes on hand that you can make yourself, and everything's quite healthy, so you're not gonna have any like junk food in those meals. And yeah, let's get right into it. I'm using a lot of things that most people have at home, so a lot of ingredients most people have at home, and a lot of the other ingredients that might be a little special you can substitute for a lot of stuff. So everything I'm making you can make yourself, whether you're an experienced cook or whether you have never tried cooking before. It's not that hard. I'll show you every single step. So let's get right into this. Today we're actually cooking red lentil dal. It's an Indian dish and it's very easy, it's very nutritious. It's actually vegan, depending on if you want to use other ingredients. It's going to be vegan the way I cook it, but you can like make it vegetarian if you want to add some milk or cream or something. So there are a lot of ways, and I'm going to show you what you need in order to actually perfect this. So that's everything we're going to need for this. So there are a few spices. You don't have to use the exact same ones I have. You can just substitute them for like an Indian spice mix or something. So I have curry powder, I have black pepper, I have salt, I have chili powder, or well, it's chili flakes in this case. I have garam masala, I have ginger powder, I have cilantro powder, and I have turmeric here. I have an onion here, I have vegetable oil, in this case it's rapeseed oil. I have some garlic. You can use garlic powder as well, I like to use fresh garlic. I've got coconut milk here, just 1 can of that. I've got a can of tomatoes here, they are cut into small pieces. I've got some red lentils here. Also feel free to substitute these for other lentils or to substitute them for chickpeas. And I've got some rice here. This is parboiled, so it does not have to be washed, in case you're wondering. First of all, we're going to dice the onion, and then we're going to mince the garlic. Now we're going to heat up some oil inside of a frying pan. Probably enough. It's probably like 1 tablespoon. And once this is heated up, we're going to add our onion and garlic. Meanwhile, we can measure 100 grams of red lentils. Now we're actually washing our lentils. I'm adding the onion and garlic to the frying pan. I'm just gonna let that in there for a couple of minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes basically. We can now start with the rice. I usually make about 150 grams of rice to go with this, but you can make as much as you'd like. And once this is bubbling up, just adding the rice and cooking it according to its directions. Stirring just in the beginning and then leaving the rice alone for the duration of its cooking time. Always put a lid on top. I'm gonna set the timer. We can now add the lentils to our garlic and onion. Just mixing this up for a little bit, and I'm letting that sit in there and fry a little bit for about 2 or 3 minutes. Once the lentils have been in there for a little bit, I'm just going to stir it to make sure that nothing's like burning on the bottom, but it shouldn't be. Like, you shouldn't like deep fry them, you should just like let them in there for a little bit. Then I am going to add my coconut milk. Going to stir it a little bit. Make sure that I like soften all of those pieces that are sort of like solid. Then I'm going to add the tomato from the can. And usually you're gonna need a little bit more water, so what I usually do is I fill half of this can up with water so that I get all of the last bits out of it, and just add that as well. There we go. Just add the water. Doesn't really matter, like you can add water later once the consistency gets thicker, whatever you prefer. Now we're just mixing that up. I'm probably gonna cook that at medium high. You're gonna wanna cook that for as long as your lentil package says. I usually let it cook there for about 15 minutes before I add all of my spices. We can actually go ahead and mix the spices together right now. It really depends on your taste. You don't have to use the same spices I'm using. You can substitute them for whatever you want to use, and you don't have to make it as spicy or something, because I do like my food spicy. So what I use for spices is I use a teaspoonful of ginger powder. I use a teaspoon of cilantro powder. I use a teaspoon of turmeric. I use a teaspoon of garam masala. I use a teaspoon of yellow curry powder. And I'll add a teaspoon, or a little less than a teaspoon of salt, some pepper, and a few chili flakes. That's it. Should look something like this. Just gonna stir it for a bit. Don't be scared that there are that many spices in there. It's just normal for Indian food. And now we're actually stirring this now and then, just to make sure that nothing burns, but it's looking good and it's smelling good. Now we can basically sit back and wait, or in my case, I'm just going to clean up the kitchen, but I really didn't make that much of a mess because there's not that much that goes into that dish. So it's very easy, very quick, very healthy, and it stays fresh in the fridge for up to 3 days, and you can freeze it really easily. Once you take it out of the freezer, it just tastes very fresh. So the rice is done, and now we're actually stirring this a little bit more with dal. And I'm going to add the spices now. Now you need to stir it well. You'll notice that everything is going to change color. Gonna have it simmer for another 5 minutes or so. It should look something like this once it's done. Consistency, if you want it more liquid, you can have it more liquid. Mine's more like a curry from the consistency, I guess. And here's the rice, and let's put everything into here. And our dal is ready. Today we're going to make a healthy and nutritious salad with quinoa and chickpeas and a lot of other stuff. So let's do this. Let's start. And it's quick and easy. Here's everything we're going to need. Basically, you can substitute most of these things for something else. So I have some lettuce here. I have a lemon here. I have a mango here. Feel free to use peach instead of mango as well. I have 2 very small avocados here. I have tomatoes here. You can substitute them for like peppers, like bell peppers or cucumber. I have some chickpeas here. I have fresh mozzarella cheese here. You can substitute that for any sort of cheese. Feta is really good in this as well. Then here I have quinoa. I have olive oil. I have balsamic vinegar. I have pepper, salt, and I have ginger here. It's like ginger powder. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to cook some quinoa. I usually use about 50 grams. First of all, we're going to wash the quinoa. Then we're cooking the quinoa according to the instructions on the package. While we're cooking our quinoa, we can actually go ahead and wash the rest of the fruit and vegetables and cut all of them up into small pieces basically. Also make sure that you wash the chickpeas. At least I like to do that because they're usually in this sort of like slimy, watery base, and I don't like that in there. It's kind of like a gelée even, like jelly basically, and I just like to wash it off as well. Oh, and by the way, forgot to mention this, don't cut up the lemon into small pieces because we need that for the dressing and we want to use the juice of the lemon, so don't cut that up. So basically we're adding everything to a bowl. I am washing the chickpeas. Wait till the water gets clear. I just went ahead and washed the tomatoes, so we're just cutting them in half. Next is the fresh mozzarella cheese. I'm just cutting them into little pieces. Basically, I'm slicing everything up. And then I'm cutting it into little squares. Next are the avocados. The way I like to cut my avocados is this way. I feel like you can get that avocado out way easier that way. And then I'm just spooning everything out. And I'm cutting them into little pieces. Now let's add the avocado to our bowl. I went ahead and washed the lettuce and I'm just adding that. Add as much as you like. And now let's mix this up a little bit. Now let's make the dressing. I'm just using a regular cup. For that, first of all, I'm going to cut the lemon in half. Now you can use the lemon juice if you have like lemon juice at home, but I like to use fresh lemon, and I'll just squeeze this in here and then use the rest of this in my tea. So I'm not using all of it. I'm just like basically doing that. You can use like a lemon squeeze thingy if you have it at home, if you don't want to put the rest into your tea or something. And I'm just using the juice from both halves and make sure that those seeds are not in your dressing. Then I'm going to add olive oil. I'm using 1 tablespoon. You can basically use any oil you want. And then I'm adding balsamic vinegar, and I'm actually using 2 tablespoons of that. Sometimes I don't even use oil, so you can even eat it without the oil as well. 1 tablespoon, and that's 2 tablespoons. Then I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. You can also add chili if you prefer that. And then I'm adding the ginger powder, just like as much as you want. And now let's just mix all of this up. It should look something like this. So everything is ready now. I'm just adding the quinoa to my salad. And I'm then adding the dressing to the salad as well. And now this recipe, the way I make it with like a lot of vinegar and stuff in it, it'll stay fresh in your fridge for at least 2 days. And then if you can't eat all of it, you can even freeze it. I've done that before and it worked out really well. It tasted just as good once it came out of the freezer. So that's something you can think of. And because of the quinoa and the chickpeas and avocado, you stay full for a long time. Has a lot of nutrients in it because there's a lot of like vegetables. It tastes fruity and at the same time it is a salad, right? Now let's mix this up. And that's what it looks like once it's finished. Recipe number 3 is very healthy, very easy. You can do something or whatever while you're actually cooking this. It'll only take you a couple of minutes and it's very nutritious as well. So it's actually oven roasted vegetables. I'm using potatoes and zucchini. I'm just gonna show you what you need and then let's get right into it. So that's basically everything we're gonna need. I'm using potatoes. I'm also using some fresh mozzarella cheese, but you can use whatever cheese you'd like to use. I'm using 1 zucchini. You can also switch these out for, let's say, pumpkin or sweet potatoes. Then I'm using some oil. I'm using peanut oil. I'm using garlic powder. I'm using my chili lime seasoning from Trader Joe's. I love this stuff, it's so good. I'm using some pepper and I'm using some salt. You can use whatever seasonings you like to use for this, by the way. So first of all, I'm going to start the oven to preheat it. And I'm setting it at 200 degrees centigrade. And while this is preheating, I'm actually starting to chop those vegetables. I'm starting with the zucchini. First of all, I'm going to wash it. And then I'm going to cut one end off. And let's cut the rest into rounds. Just like this. Now I'm actually going to stack those rounds and we're gonna turn them into first halves and then quarters. Now I'm going to add all of that zucchini to a bowl. I'm actually going to add about a teaspoonful of oil. I'm also going to add some garlic powder. You can also use onion powder if you want. I'm going to add some pepper. And I'm going to add some salt as well. Now I'm going to use my fingers. I'm just making sure that everything is coated in oil and seasonings. I put some aluminum foil on a baking tray. I like to use aluminum foil because you're not going to make a mess. And on this half I'm going to set our zucchini, on this half I'm going to set our potatoes. So let's just add the zucchini. And what I'm doing is I'm just basically spreading it out. And the way I like to do this is I like to fold the ends up so that everything stays contained in here. Doesn't matter if they're overlapping, that's alright. Looks good. I went ahead and washed the potatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm cutting them into half and then I'm cutting them into slices. If they're like brown parts or something, I usually just cut that off. Now I'm just basically slicing them like potato wedges. Now this potato is really big, so I'm going to cut that into half and then just cut it into smaller pieces. Now I'm adding all those potato pieces to the bowl that I used before for the zucchini. I'm adding about a teaspoon of oil. I'm adding the chili lime seasoning. I like to use a lot of this stuff. Now adding pepper. And I'm adding some salt. Now I'm just mixing everything up with my hands. Now I'm going to add everything, like the potatoes, to the baking tray. And just putting them there, every single one at a time, because I want them to get a little crunchy. So that's what everything looks like. Now let's add this to the oven. It's all heated up. I'm gonna put it into the middle. Now let's set a timer. Let's set the timer timer for half an hour. While we're waiting for our vegetables in the oven to actually get done and roasted, you can use our mozzarella cheese or whatever sort of cheese you're using. What I like to do is actually cut it into slices at first, and then cut those slices into thin sticks. I always have to watch that I'm not eating the whole mozzarella cheese before I'm actually adding it to the oven, because I'm not adding it now, otherwise it would just burn, so I'm just adding that at the end. Now that we're almost done, we can just sit back and wait until that timer goes off, and then we're gonna add the mozzarella cheese, and then we're gonna bake it for another 5 minutes, and then we're done. Okay, it's all looking good. We're now adding everything to a plate. Make sure that it's oven proof or heat proof, because otherwise it's gonna die inside of the oven, because we're gonna put it back into the oven with the mozzarella cheese on top. It should look something like this, and now we're adding our cheese sticks. Just randomly placing them all over basically. You can add as much or little cheese as you like. It also tastes good without cheese, and you can add some sort of like condiments to it if you like. Once this is done, it's gonna go back into the oven. So just placing it on here. Putting it back here. And now let's set the timer for 7 minutes, and then it's done. It's ready, all done. So that's what it looks like. I put a heat-proof coaster underneath because the plate is hot right now. But yeah, it looks very good. It's nutritious, it's healthy, it's tasty. So that's it, that's a wrap for my cooking video. Here you have 3 meal ideas for easy, nutritious, healthy meals, or somewhat healthy meals that you can make at home during these times. Over here in Austria, all of the restaurants are closed, so they're not allowed to be open. Only the ones that deliver, those are still open, but like restaurants where you can go sit down, all of them are closed. People need to cook for themselves right now. So I figured some of you might profit from this content. Let me know how you liked this video, if you want me to do more videos like these, because I do have a ton of recipes, or well, like most of the stuff was made up by myself anyways, like the Indian dals, that's just something I made up. So that's not a certain recipe I followed or something, that's just something I made up. And thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure that you click on the subscribe button down below, and also make sure that you click on the little bell icon below, because otherwise YouTube is not going to notify you whenever I post a new video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.